Welcome back to Closest to the People. I'm Crystal Froze, and this is a podcast where we are talking about real work of local leadership, challenges, opportunities, and the decisions that shape our communities every day. And today I'm joined by Mayor Mark Jantzer of Minot, North Dakota. Mayor Jantzer is a longtime community leader and a business owner who stepped into municipal leadership with a strong focus on economic development, infrastructure, and making sure Minot continues to grow while still protecting the quality of life that makes Prairie City special. Minot, like Moose Jaw, is a prairie city with deep agricultural roots, a strong regional economy, and an important relationship with its local Air Force base. Mayor Jantzer has been navigating the balance between growth, infrastructure demands, and supporting the businesses and families that call Minot home. In our conversation, we talk about the similarities between our cities, the realities of leading at the local level, and how municipal leaders are often the ones closest to the everyday issues people are all about. So let's get into it. So today's podcast is a little bit different format than what I have normally done. Today I am really excited to welcome a guest today. His name is Mark Jantzer. He is the mayor of Minot, North Dakota. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Now, do we call you, well, I know we call you mayor, but do you guys also use terms like your worship for mayors down there? Or?
Oh, but having known some mayors from Canada in the past, I think that's a fun term. I'm not necessarily thinking that I deserve it, but not so much worship.
Yeah, I'm not even sure where that came from. I'm assuming it's probably a really old term, but yeah, we hear that every now and then up here. So one of the reasons I thought we would have a really good discussion is because Minot and Moose Jaw are quite similar cities. When I was doing a little bit of research on Minot, I discovered that you're obviously a prairie town. Your town started with the railroad, so did Moose Jaw. You have a river. We have a river running through our city too. There's lots of similarities. You have an air base. We have an air base. We're very much mirroring each other, and that. But I wanted to ask you, what can you tell us a little bit about Minot? If nobody's ever been to your city, what would you like them to know?
I think Minot is one of those places that is maybe more than you would expect on the surface. As you noted, this area was settled by mostly Scandinavian settlers at the time that North Dakota was opened up for homesteading and so forth, back around the turn of the 1900s. And so there are a lot of hardy people here, and our people are very proud of their heritage. But we have diversified in a lot of ways, since those early settling days. And so, as you say, with the air base, with the influx of people that we had during the oil boom here back in the 2000 to 2010, we had ended up with people from all over the country here, which is a wonderful thing if you like Jamaican food or other things that you wouldn't get other than by having that ethnic diversity. So it's Minot is a good place. I've lived here since 1977. I'm a North Dakotan. I was originally born in Bismarck and grew up there, but came to Minot for a job, and we fell in love with the place, raised our kids here, and the rest is history, as they say. So I think there's a real wonderful quality to the Great Plains, and to we say that we produce, we power, and we protect. And that's because of the agricultural base. North Dakota is very productive, to include the Minot area as far as agriculture is concerned. we have a lot of energy that we export, both um, power, coal, um, and quite a bit of wind these days, energy production. And um, so that's a thing that's important. And then because of our air base, Minot Air Force Base is the only base in the United States that has two legs of the nuclear triad. So we have B-52 bombers as well as Minuteman III missiles. And so that's a big part of our community, and we have great relationship with the base and its leadership. Their slogan is that only the best come north, and
We
you
agree.
know, and and go forth better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but most of the some of the Air Force folks that come, um, if you're a volunteer member of the armed forces, join the Air Force, you're from, rural Mississippi or someplace, and your first assignment is to Minot Air Force Base, you can imagine that could be a little daunting.
Yeah.
Uh, but we try to wrap our arms around those people and make them family, and get them acclimated to the way life is here, maybe a little different than where they're from. And for the most part, if they're willing to try new things and enjoy some of what we do here, maybe that they don't do back home, um, then everybody gets along pretty well and it works out fine. So, yeah.
Yeah, very very similar to what we do here. Like ours is a training base for our pilots, and yeah, we have people who come from all across Canada. And for somebody who might be from the mountains of British Columbia or the ocean sides way out in Nova Scotia, the middle of the prairie can be kind of a shocker. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, if you're used to living in a forested area in Virginia, having the horizon 22 miles away is scary.
yeah. It is. It is. Yeah. Although, I think they're pretty. They're in pretty much awe when they see the sunsets that we have here. On the prairies, because they last way longer than they do in mountains, obviously, or treed areas and that. Yeah, for sure. So,
Yes.
yeah. So we're so similar. So, I'm wondering, like, for mine out, like, what are some of the key challenges that your city is facing right now?
Well, we talk about there's sort of these wicked problems, as I would describe them, that, difficult to solve. And there's no particular order because they're kind of like chicken or the egg type things. So, one is workforce. Um, North Dakota has had more jobs than people for as long as I can remember. Our unemployment is, hovers around 2% or thereabouts. And so, there are, you know, 10,000 plus. I think for the state, I think statewide, it hovers around 25 or 30,000 open jobs where, and even if you would count a portion of those as unrealistic, or things that people aren't going to get filled, it's still a lot of openings. And um, so the next wicked problem, aside from workforce, is housing, because if you do attract workforce, you have to have a place for them to live.
Yep.
And so, housing development is a challenge for a whole bunch of reasons. Some of them are local, some of them are, mortgage rates and things that we can't really control, that are happening on a national level or what have you. And so that is also a problem. After our catastrophic flood in 2011, um, we did get a lot of apartments built and a lot of low to middle income housing, which is sort of a rent capped um, versus market price type of apartment, typically apartment housing. And so that has helped some, but there's still a need for more housing, particularly in sort of what I would loosely term the starter home category versus the high end or apartments. And then lastly, the other challenge that we have is childcare. Uh, if you have a workforce, you have a place for them to live, um, somebody's got to take care of the kids.
Mhm.
And if you want to have, if you want to have both those parents, say, working. And so that is also a challenge. We have folks who work in the missile complex here, who, are out in the field for a week at a time.
Mm.
And so, it's 24/7 for those kinds of stints in the work schedule. And so that isn't easy to find. When you're needing people to pull an overnight childcare thing. So those are some of the problems. I mean, we uh, we keep working at those. The state of North Dakota is engaged in trying to solve some of those things because they're basically they're statewide problems for the most part. And so we get some help from the state on a little bit of that. But it's a challenge, and we continue to work on them.
So have you seen an increase of people that are unhoused or homeless? Are you seeing an impact like that, or?
Um, that is an issue. We recently, one of the things we did get accomplished here recently is back after our flood, we had competed in a resilience grant that the Department of Housing and Urban Development ran, and we were awarded money for doing certain projects. And one of the projects was a family shelter.
Hmm.
Minot had not had, we had a women and children's shelter at the time. We had a men's refuge, which is sort of like a winter, YMCA kind of place where guys could go if they didn't have any place else. But if there was a family, then either they had to split up or there really wasn't a kind of a shelter for them to be all together in. So anyway, so out of this grant, and it took a long time. There were some pitfalls along the way, but we recently got that opened up. And so I would say we don't have a lot of homeless. I don't know what that looks like, or but having been in places like San Francisco and Los Angeles, I don't think our homeless problem is anywhere near what some other areas of the country experience. Uh, we had a recent severe cold snap, and so the United Way and some folks, along with the Salvation Army, opened up a warming shelter. Just a place where if somebody was out on the street
Right.
and so that they didn't freeze, that they had a place to go. And so this was over a long weekend, and I think over that time, roughly about on average, there are about a dozen people there.
Mhm.
So there are some folks. Some of them are transient. It changes in the summertime when the weather is conducive to sleeping outside and whatnot. But it is a bit of a problem that we try to be humane and make sure that we don't want anybody to freeze out there, for goodness
Oh,
sake.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when you're talking to your residents, at the coffee shop or at different community events and that, like what are they saying are some of the most things that they're kind of focused on for the future? What are some of the things that are coming up in your conversations with them?
Well, most, I mean, over the last year or year and a half, we've had a lot of discussion about property tax in our state and in Minot. And, that has been very interesting because there was a group that tried to pass a constitutional amendment that would have eliminated property tax to fund local government like cities, park districts, school districts, counties, and put that burden on the state. And the rationale was that the state has a significant legacy fund that has grown because of oil tax revenues, and so sort of the mentality was, sort of like the son in the Bible who says, give me my inheritance now. I want my piece now. The mentality was, well, the state has all this money. We should just get it, and they should, pay for all of the local government costs. It would have been a huge expense and ultimately probably unsustainable. But fortunately it didn't pass. It lost by, I think, I think the no's were something like 68% of the voters in a statewide election. So that's kind of on the mind of we have worked pretty hard to keep our property taxes low here in Minot and have reduced them in the last two budget cycles a little bit. But to do that, we've used a significant amount of reserves. And so that's probably not sustainable as a solution either. I think some folks have a mentality or have an attitude that these city services that they're receiving or the operation of the school district or the county, are somehow entitlements or something that should just be paid for out of, whatever resources there are. The problem is that's not the system that we work under here in North Dakota and in the US. And so therefore, city has to have revenue to provide the public safety and, water, sewer, garbage collection, roads, all the things that we do. And so we have to have enough revenue to do that. So there's a lot of chatter about that around the coffee table.
Was the premise like if that had gone through, would have meant that there would have been no city council governance, that the state would have actually had to effectively look after roads and sewers?
Well, no, and that was kind of the irony of it. What it would have done would have been to freeze the level at the existing budget level. The state would have had to provide the money, and then the local jurisdictions would have still had to figure out how to spend it and what to prioritize.
Oh, I see. Yeah, but there's no guarantee that the state will give you enough to do everything.
Well, right. And I mean, the other part of it was a little inflexible because, circumstances change. You have, growth in a community. Well, then your budget has to increase in order to, service the additional subdivisions that you annex or, whatever. And so, if the revenue doesn't flex in response to those kinds of things, then you end up with some problems as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it probably would have made the cities somewhat competitive against each other if you're all receiving money from the state, wouldn't it have? Where, yeah.
Yes, and the way our legislature is, I mean, let's say, okay, you say, well, it shouldn't get political, but it probably does because the eastern part of North Dakota has a larger population, therefore a larger contingent of members of the House, at least in state government, and so if if people sort of gang up and decide, hey, we're gonna wire this thing so that it benefits us, that could be a problem as well. So I was really glad that the measure didn't pass. I think it was poorly written and kind of poorly thought out, and so I was glad it didn't pass. What the legislature then met subsequently, and what they did do was impose a cap of 3% on municipal government in terms of how much we could raise our mill levy in a particular year. And if you think about it, I mean, sometimes 3% about keeps up with inflation. Sometimes it doesn't, and so that isn't necessarily a perfect solution either. But that's what we're living with currently. And our legislature meets every 2 years. We're on a biennium system, and they get 80 days every 2 years. And I think when they meet in the odd years. So I think when they meet again in 27, some of these changes may get further attention, may get tweaked a little bit based on feedback from the communities and based on feedback from what's happened in the meantime. So we'll see how it pans out.
Was there a trend of higher taxation percentages, like higher than 3%? Was that one of the triggers? Was some communities going 9 or 10% or?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think not necessarily giant bumps each year, but sort of there were certainly, I would say, on average, probably a higher than 3% increase in a number of cases, and
Right.
so that and this sales or this property tax thing is is a national issue. This whole argument that I don't really own my home even though it's paid off because if I can't pay my property taxes, then eventually I'll lose my home to the government. So the legislature also, though, besides the 3% cap, did provide $1,600 of tax relief. So, for a lot of people, that was a significant bite into the property tax complaint, if you will. A lot of people in 25, if you had a fairly modest house, you maybe didn't end up paying any property tax, depending on the community you were living in, or depending on what your house was. And so if you had you think about it, if you had a house where your taxes had been, say, $4,200, and you get a $1,600 buy down from the state, that was pretty helpful.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, even as a one-time thing these days, definitely helps.
Yeah, so we ended up with kind of a compromise, which is maybe okay.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, so you've been on city council for a while and you've been a mayor for a while. So what are a couple of the things that you have kind of led the charge in that you've made changes in that are specific to some of the things that you've done?
Well, I think I think most recently, um, we've been focused we've been focused primarily on our refining our budget process. Um, and it's had some good steps. We fairly recently, one of the things that I was involved in fairly recently was, we after using an accounting and a business system at the city from the 80s, actually, we implemented a new modern ERP system. And so we have a lot more ability to be data driven and make decisions based on information. We have much better both internal and external access to information. We can generate reports and graphs and things that can pictorially provide a quick snapshot or a dashboard of what is going on.
How long did that take to implement? Like, because if going from an 80s, isn't
Yeah,
that
so
almost paper ledger, almost Excel
well,
spreadsheet?
no, I mean the old system was a computer system of the time, but obviously things have changed. And it was a 2 to 3 year process to from deciding to do it, putting together a budgetary plan to pay for it, putting together a requirements document, um, going through the vendor selection process, and then moving into the piece by piece implementation process. These things, when you have all these different departments, and it's a pretty massive project. And then there are always line specific pieces of software that are in use, say in utility billing, or some things that are used out in the field. The tablets that the city assessors use, or the stuff that the building inspectors use. And the other part of this is to either incorporate those additional specific applications, or find something that works with your new system, or maybe the new system already has that in it, but then you have to transition. So it's a large endeavor, but well worth doing because of the benefits for it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes those types of things aren't the glamorous, shiny ribbon cutting kind of things that have such an impact, but it does have an impact in probably all aspects of the staff that you have, and providing better services too to the citizens.
Right. Yeah. It's true of those kinds of things like computer systems. It's also true of infrastructure. Some of the things that cost big bucks, like replacing a roof, or replacing a air conditioning system, or an elevator, aren't necessarily very glamorous. but
Yeah.
but you have to do them. If you
Yeah.
if you don't keep up with those things and do them in a timely way, then those facilities aren't useful anymore to the people that need them. So
Yeah, and or they just become more costly as you go along, because what you put off today could cost you twice as much
well,
down the road too.
that's generally true. And we have this debate all the time, or you always, um, we're looking for ways to save money, and one of the quickest ways is to say, well, we can not replace some rolling stock, road graders, cars, we'll just drive them longer. Well, there's a point though where your cost of maintenance starts to eat into whatever savings you thought you were going to have. And when you do replace them, they're really not worth anything. So then you're paying the full burden of replacing that thing with a newer used one. And so, yeah, it's a, it's a debate that you kind of have to have depending on what your circumstances are, figure out what the best course is in a given situation.
Yeah, exactly. So now you're gonna be heading into an election here in a couple months,
Yeah,
and that
indeed.
yeah. So what are you running on? What's your key focus? What do you think the citizens are gonna look to you for your leadership during this campaign?
Well, I think for the most part, I think we want to make sure that we're making sound fiscal decisions, whether that's raising taxes to meet the need, whether that's holding the line, knowing that we're probably neglecting, and deferring some things that are going to come back to us eventually anyway. So I think that's one of the issues. I think we have a couple of potential projects that we have to prepare for. One is a modernization of our weapon systems out at Minot Air Force Base. Both the B-52 bombers and the Minuteman III missiles are the B-52s are being upgraded with new engines and new radars and some other things. And then the Sentinel system is a new missile system that is in process of design and building that will replace the Minuteman system. And so that will be a fairly large project, one of the largest military construction projects that the Air Force or the government has done in a long time. And so, we see that on the horizon, and we're looking at ways that we can be ready for that as a community, both for the influx of what may turn out to be several thousand workers that'll be doing that, but also the secondary and tertiary effects of having that kind of an influx into the community, and what effect does that have on police and fire, on hospital services, medical services, all of these kinds of things that come when you have more people and they have needs. And then,
A lot of people, 1,000 people. That for a city your size, like would that happen all at once, or is that like a gradual as they phase everything in?
well, we don't know exactly yet. That plan is still being finalized, but at one time, the original idea was that there are three missile bases in the country, one down in Cheyenne, Wyoming, one in Great Falls, Montana, and one here in Minot. And the original idea was that they would do them sequentially, meaning they were going to start in Cheyenne and do that base, then move to Montana and do that one, and then lastly come to Minot. The new thinking, though, is that maybe isn't the smartest way to do things, partly because of our climate and the short construction season, and partially because if you do it that way, then there is this huge impact of an itinerant workforce showing up, all at one time. And we've experienced some of that when the oil boom was going on, man camps where you had, a couple thousand folks living in temporary housing and whatnot, and that isn't the best situation. So the current thinking is that they'll do things more concurrently, more at the same time, and that will diminish some of the kind of impact that it would have if they'd stayed with the other way. So we'll
Right.
see.
Right.
We'll see. The other big project we have going on is there's a company that is planning to build a pig iron production facility here. Pig iron is basically pure iron, and it's the feedstock for making steel. Currently, most of that is imported now, to the U.S., and there really isn't another facility, doing it. And the reason they want to do it in Minot is we have natural gas pipeline coming from the west from our oil fields. So there's an industrial capacity supply of natural gas. And then we have a big rail yard here, and that would be conducive as well. And so we'll see. Again, that could be a facility that would employ in the neighborhood of 500 folks. So it would be a nice economic development win for the Minot community, and we're looking forward to seeing that construction start on that. So.
Yeah, those would be really great economic impact projects for you. Do you have much competition for running for mayor? Is there other people putting their hat in the ring?
Well, I'm quite confident that I will have competition, but nobody else has announced to date. So we'll see. Our deadline is the 6th of April.
Oh, okay, so
So I'm quite confident that there'll be some people out there that'll want to run.
Yeah, there always is. There always is, and it always surprises me too. All the different walks of life that people come from when it comes to the election time too. Yeah, the groups. Yeah. So, Mayor, as we're going to be kind of wrapping up here, I just wanted to give you maybe a couple minutes, and if somebody from Moose Jaw was looking and wanted to go on a vacation or take a drive, because you're not that far away from us, like, what are some of the tourist type things that they would definitely want to come check out in Minot?
Well, one of the things I love about Minot is even though it's a relatively small community, is we have kind of even with our climate and winter, we kind of have 4 seasons of fun. There's stuff to do in the summer, obviously. Softball, golf, people going to the lake, hiking. There's all kinds of stuff to do then. Fall is gorgeous. And in the wintertime, I have a lot of friends from down south and east and west coast. And, I tell them, hey, we get real winter up here. It's not wimpy winter. And so, my criteria is, when you walk outside and it hurts immediately, that's when it's cold. And
Welcome to the prairies.
you know that, yeah. And so, but again, there are there's tons of things that you can do. Ice skating, ice fishing, snowmobiling, snowshoeing, cross country skiing. There's all kinds of things you can do outside. And then, if you'd rather stay indoors, there's hockey to watch. There's basketball. There's all the things that happen indoors, whether it's high school or collegiate sports, or some of the semi-pro teams and the other things that we have here. So always good things to do. So we have a couple of things that we have a beautiful Scandinavian park in our community. The Scandinavian Heritage Association, through donations of people who mostly have passed now, but we have a full-scale Stav church, a Norwegian. I was in Morgedal, Norway, and felt right at home because the church there looked exactly the same as the one that we have in the park.
Oh, wow.
And so that's wonderful. We also downtown, we have kind of a new area called Citizens Alley, which is a sort of a community space, which in the summer has things like pickleball or things that you can do, or you can have an event down there. They have music concerts and so forth. In the wintertime, they have a ice sheet, so you can skate, do some ice skating, put up a couple of nets and play a little hockey.
Wow.
They also have ice rink bumper cars that you can
I'd
jump
love
in
to see that.
and ricochet off your friends. So it's fun to go down there and either watch or jump in and have a mug of hot chocolate or a beer and enjoy that. So yeah, I mean, so there's some good things. We have our downtown is pretty active. We have some great eating establishments and some places you can get an alcoholic beverage and enjoy that. And so yeah, it's we also have a really nice. Actually, I was just there this morning. We have a really nice museum called the Dakota Territory Air Museum.
Okay.
And we have if you're interested in aviation, there's one whole hangar that has a World War II collection of vintage aircraft, and then there's 3 other buildings that have other parts of the collection. Really cool airplanes to view, and in that the unique thing about the World War II collection is that all of those airplanes fly. I mean,
wow.
Warren Peach, one of our renowned pilots here, from a family of flyers, actually, is the guy who kind of produced that. And yeah, they're all restored. They all fly. And he goes to a lot of air shows, out to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, to the big air show, and is probably flying out in a P-51 or one of those, cool aircraft. So yeah.
Very cool. Love to see that.
Yeah. So there's some stuff to do. In the summertime, there's a real active car club group. They cruise, every week, and sometimes out to one of the small towns around here. So there's always a car show going on every weekend, depending on where you want to go.
Yeah, sounds like a very prairie city with all of the things that bring you out all 4 seasons. That's one thing about us prairie people is we're not afraid of winter. So yeah, nope, not at all. Well, thank you very much, Mayor, for your time today. I sure appreciate it. It's been really great getting to know Minot a little bit more, and I see even more similarities between our 2 cities and that. And I just really appreciate you taking some time out, and I wish you the very best in your election. And yeah. Thank
you very much. And thanks for having me. And I'm going to try to get to Moose Jaw.
Yeah, well, you look me up and I'll do the same if I come down to Minot. I'll look you up, and I can show you all the highlights of our city, and I'm sure you do the same for me when I come down there. That'd be great.
Absolutely, I look forward to it.
Well, that was a great conversation, and talking with Mayor Jantzer really enforced something that I believe deeply. No matter what side of the border you're on, cities like Minot and Moose Jaw are way more alike than they are different. We're prairie communities, we're built on agriculture, shaped by rail, and we both support our air bases. But much more than that, we're both focused on the same things, taking care of people first. Because at the end of the day, local leaders are the closest to the people. We see the challenges first, we feel the pressure first, and we're the ones expected to act. And that's what makes this level of leadership matter so much. So if you like this podcast, thanks so much for listening. please share it with other people who might be interested in all of these different topics that we're covering. Thanks so much. My name is Crystal Froese, and this has been Closest to the People.